Chances he won't. He may not introduce himself this way, but we were roommates in Cleveland, and I come back, and he's like employee number 6 at. Were you with XM or Sirius? I can't remember which one. XM, and then he later was Oprah's right hand on the communication, and now he's helping the King Center on communication. So, if there's ever a person to reflect from MLK, would be you, Chance, among an elite few. So you just heard the question about inequality. Maybe just how do you see things today, 2022? In light of Martin Luther King's legacy.
Well, I think Steve was right. I mean, I think until we make until we shift priorities. I mean, our theme this year for the King Holiday Observance Week at the King Center has been shifting priorities to create the beloved community. And the beloved community is this concept of, if we are bent on the path towards justice, creating a just, peaceful, humane, and equitable society, an equitable world, that would result in the creation of the beloved community. And, to even begin to take steps towards that, and where we would have that equity and that equality and the access to education for all, and eliminating hunger and access to healthcare, all those things that we would want for everyone. We have to shift our priorities. And I think, you said it right, even with the education system in the U.S., as long as it's based primarily on the property taxes that are collected in the areas near these schools, you're going to have schools that are, much higher quality than others. And so, we look at it as if, if MLK was able to get the Civil Rights Act of 1964 passed and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 passed, in that era where, although as dark as it seems now, it was darker then. Certainly we can get the Voting Rights Act passed again here today. Certainly we can deal with the systemic inequalities that we all are very aware of and we see every day. And as he just discussed, ultimately the greater economy and greater society loses when you have these inequalities, when you have these inequities, because you have a significant population that isn't able to reach its full potential. And so that's what we focus on. How do we create large scale change? Not protesting in the moment. We're not a single issue organization. We are looking at society's biggest problems and saying, okay, what is the strategy as a nation, as a community, to deal with them?
Hey, Mark, I've got a question for Chance, if it's okay. This is Rob Colorino.
Sure.
Yep. Sure. Chance, just your points are well taken. Can you speak a little bit about your funding, meaning post social unrest, or just sort of more historically, has funding and sort of voluntary engagement, those type of things, has it been steady or has it been volatile?
For the King Center itself?
Yep.
No, it hasn't been steady. It's grown in the recent years. Certainly, I think in some ways this whole notion of training people in the strategies of nonviolence, was not clearly articulated. I think it was hard for corporations to get their arms around it, but we've done better in recent years. And I think certainly the George Floyd and BLM phenomenon has, opened some eyes and said, this whole notion of civil rights and social justice, this isn't some utopian fantasy concept. This is actually real life. Like if you could teach people how to cope with each other in a way that's nonviolent, if you can work through how to navigate tough conversations, those are skills. Those are life skills. Those are workplace skills. Those are leadership skills. And so the corporations in particular are becoming more interested in investing in those types of skills. And we happen to be, very good at helping people apply those skills and doing it in a way that's scalable within these organizations. So that's a long way of saying, the world has kind of come back to us in a way where it's not just, I'll be a little impolitic and say, for instance, the BLM movement, that was really a lot of protesting, right? But they didn't have a legislative or policy strategy. How do you translate the marching into changes in law, right? And that's a big deal. I mean, you had a lot of people who were very upset and very committed, but where did it go? And that's not a criticism. Yeah. I'm saying, we're helping these organizations, we're helping these companies figure out how do they invest in social impact and invest in social justice to actually create an outcome in policy and law and in the behavior of their staff. So things are, we could always use more funding. We just launched an online version of our training for the first time. It's called Nonviolence 365 Online. So that'll be a way to reach more people. But it had been choppy for a while. Yes.
Yeah. And just the quick thought there, and Steve, you may have bigger thoughts. The integration to ESG, I think we have to be cautious of, this word greenwashing and not it just being a short-term pop, but it being more of a developed strategy and thinking long-term to integrate policy. So thanks.
Yeah, ESG is a tough one because of the lack of clarity on standards. And it kind of takes issues like Chance was just talking about and make it some number or metric as opposed to a change. And I wonder, and I was going to ask Chance this question, do you think the politicians are adding to the problem or helping it right now? Because I worry about the political divisiveness making things worse, not better. So how do you think about that?
Well, I think that, as we've been approached about, let's take the voting rights issue, the bills that are before the Senate right now, we've expressed that there seems to be a communication problem. I think one thing that among the many things you could say about King, he had a gift for making things digestible and simple and clear. And, in my view, this entire Voting Rights Act and re-enabling the original act and what does it allow for the Justice Department to go in and examine policies that have been passed at the local level. I mean, I'm a lawyer and this stuff becomes very complicated. And so we've expressed, you have to keep this simple. Let's simplify the story. And so you may have noticed that there was some commentary from the administration just in the last couple of days where they tried to quantify what if we continue with the restrictions that have been imposed at the local level and seem to be on track to go wide across the country, how many people who voted last election would in theory be prevented from voting this time around? They're quantifying that. That was a suggestion we had, because until you can actually say 10 million people are now at risk of not being able to vote, then that gives me, now I have something to hold on to. But if you're just talking about how racist the Republicans are or whatever, name calling and all these things, it just doesn't go anywhere. So we try and, our first step in the nonviolence philosophy in the strategy is, we don't comment on day one. We typically do our research first so we can understand the issue and then come back with a meaningful response. And so I think that's our charge to the political establishment. Let's give people meaningful information.
Chance, you promised to come back more, right?
I will.
This is recorded, so I just want to make sure everybody. I'm using what Jack Wyant does to me.
Yeah,
reminding
you made it me, man. I'm, now it's on the record. I would love to, and I appreciate the platform. I think, yesterday was, we did have the vice president speak at the Ebenezer church service. And, we also had some Republicans speak. And I think the more we can actually talk about the issues and give the information to people in a way they can understand how it affects their own lives, that's the key. But this name calling and all that nonsense, I think, we'll get nowhere. So that's the hope in 2022. We can, have meaningful conversations. I appreciate you having me, Mark.
I know you have a hard stop, so thank you.
Come join our 361 firm community of investors and thought leaders. We have a lot of events created by the community as we collaborate on investments and philanthropic interests. Join us.